Today is November the 16th, 2008. I'm Bill Adler, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Herman and Gita Chernin, who have quite a bit of history to share with us about Arizona. And if I might, Homer, can I start with you? I understand that you were born and raised in Nogales, Arizona.
That's correct.
Can you give me some family history of how your family got there and your youth in Nogales?
The family came originally in the United States from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Because of my grandmother's health, to California, and that was too wet, so they came to Tucson from there. And eventually, when my mother became of marriageable age, there wasn't a Jewish community in Tucson, but they knew there was one in El Paso, Texas, so they moved there, where she married my father. Later, they, as a family, began moving back west and eventually ended up back in Arizona again. I had four sisters born before they moved west. I was the first in my family born in Arizona.
When were you born?
In 1924, June of 1924, in Nogales.
What was it like growing up in Nogales?
Well, it was a small town, extremely small, 5,000 people. So it's very pleasant. Went all through school there. The extended Jewish family was there, however. My mother's family, she had 6 brothers and a sister, and most of them lived in Nogales. So they intermarried other Jews that were there in that surrounding area. So most of the Jewish community was intermarried in Nogales at that time, and it numbered less than 100. The closest temple or shul was in Tucson at that time. We would go to Tucson whenever we had an opportunity to go to services at one of the institutions there. We held our own seders. It was an extended family, and we'd all get together. And so there were 40-some people, and we had 2 Seder nights, and we observed Passover, ordered food from Tucson, and observed all of those rules of Passover. And we continued to be Jewish.
Gita, you ended up in Nogales, I understand, but tell me a bit about your background. Where were you born and raised, and what about your family?
I was born in Chicago, and of an Orthodox family, and when it came time to go to college, I ended up at the University of Arizona. It was right at the end of World War II, and I was supposed to go to the University of Illinois in Champaign. I always wanted to go away from home. And all of the housing was turned over to returning servicemen. So lo and behold, I had no place to live. But a cousin in Tucson urged me to come there. So I did. My folks were a little bit reluctant about me going so far away, but I was able to go and rushed Alpha Epsilon Phi sorority, which was the Jewish sorority on campus. And at the end of the first semester, I met Homer. He came to visit me at the sorority house. He was in a group called Tau Delta Phi, and it was a brand new fraternity on campus, a Jewish fraternity. And that's how we met. And it was love at first sight as far as I was concerned. And when I went home and told my parents that I was dating this boy named Homer from Nogales. My mother said, "What kind of a name is that for a nice Jewish boy? Homer." So anyway, they came to love him, as I did, and we were married in Chicago. And Homer's parents did come, and his youngest sister and brother. He has 7 siblings, so it's a large family. And my family was there. I have a brother and a sister. There were just 3 children in my family. And we moved to Nogales, and that was culture shock, I'll tell you, to move from Chicago to Nogales in 1949. We lived there for a year and then moved to Tucson. For a while we lived in Louisiana and then came back to Tucson, and in 1975 we came to Tempe because Homer was transferred from Tucson to the Phoenix area. By then he was working for Southern Arizona Bank, which became First National Bank, and then First Interstate Bank, and now Wells Fargo.
You mentioned that you were in Louisiana for a while. How did you end up there, and how active were you in the Jewish community there?
We ended up in Louisiana because Homer's oldest sister, Sylvia, her husband and she and their family lived there. They were in the scrap business, scrap iron. So we moved there because we were struggling newlyweds. We actually had 1 child by then. Our oldest son had been born. And we ended up being in our own scrap business there for 11 years. And we were active in the Jewish community there. Homer was secretary of the ADL chapter there. I was president of what was then B'nai B'rith Women. And and I was on the board of the synagogue. We belonged to the conservative synagogue there. So we've always tried to be active in communities wherever we've lived.
That was my next question, and I assume that carried over to your later married life in the communities of Tucson and Tempe.
Yes, right, it has. Homer was a past president of Temple Beth Sholom right here. It was in Mesa then when he was president. Now it's in Chandler. And I've been active in what's now Jewish Women International. It was B'nai B'rith Women. I was a co-president of it, vice president. And
if you were to look back on your life and you were to say, this is my legacy, what do you think your legacy would be? And let me ask Homer first, and then I'll ask you, Dita.
My
Your
legacy? Oh,
What?
I think to be an ethical Jew. I think that we've passed that on to our children. Be Jewish and be ethical. Judaism personifies ethics, and I think we've successfully done that.
Dita?
right,
What would you say your legacy was that you leave to this world?
right. I agree with Homer that being Jewish has been an important part of our lives, and seeing that our children and grandchildren, even great-grandchildren, are Jewish. We even have a grandson who has made Aliyah to Israel. So for us, that's been a thread throughout our lives, an important thing.
I thank you both very much. It was wonderful meeting you and talking to you, and I wish you nothing but good health.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.